Black folks, you were taught wrong. Yeah, you were taught wrong, and nothing is wrong with that. You were taught to look good, but not be good, truly. Yeah, we look good as a people, but y'all, we don't own a damn thing. This is the way society want to keep us. We look good as a people, but we're renting our houses and leasing foreign cars and financing the lifestyle. We look good, but we don't have a damn savings account. Our savings account's empty. We don't have an emergency fund. We don't have any doomsday kits. We don't have none of that. And one setback could send everything crashing down in our house. And before somebody get pissed off, this ain't no insult. I'm trying to give an explanation. Society has put this on us to what we think foreign and jewelry and cars and clothes and all that stuff. See, we were taught to show wealth, not build it. Designer over deeds, image over infrastructure, and validation over ownership. And it's not your fault. I'm not pointing the finger at us. They've been studying our buying habits, y'all white folks, since the 1950s. I put up a video on YouTube.
Happy Friday, happy Friday, happy Friday. Welcome back to On the Shoulders of Giants. I am Joseph Ward. I started off with that little clip. Because I wanted to revisit a conversation we had on this past Wednesday night breakdown live, a conversation about hopelessness. I want to revisit that conversation with context and information, and not from an emotional standpoint. Because I want us to understand what we truly mean by the hopelessness of Black Americans, and also show that we're not just making stuff up. This is stuff our scholars even talked about. This is stuff our scholars even diagnosed. Dr. Joy DeGruy, in her book Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, she explicitly breaks down what vacant esteem is. Vacant esteem and hopelessness is the same thing. She breaks it down. And like we said in the live stream, this is not something that is absolute. But what it is, what the problem lies, is the hopelessness that Black America does harbor is in a majority of us. And we're talking about going up against an empire to replace the system of white supremacy is an empire. Going up against that to replace that with the system of justice. We're going to need more than just a critical mass, right? Like Black people globally are going to have to unite for that. But being able to look at it from a realistic standpoint, if hopelessness was not the state of the majority of Black Americans just focusing on us, where are the results? Because we have to have results. But unfortunately, we have an abundance of results of the hopelessness. And this video is not to wallow in the hopelessness. It's to point it out so we can build upon it, and so we can start having actual hope for the majority of us. Just because those of us who are in this circle have hope don't mean we don't have eyes and can see the hopelessness around us. But that's why we get active in our community, to help reduce the number of people who have the hopelessness or the vacant esteem. So before I get a lot deeper, please hit that like button, comment, subscribe, share, and hype this video. This is not an emotional conversation. It's a real conversation. It's something to think about, something to chew on, something to take home, something to sleep on, and something to build with. Because we got to remember, like, hopelessness is one of the greatest barriers to group progress. Because we're measuring our level of hope versus hopelessness by our actual progress as a whole. People who believe they can win will build institutions, businesses, schools, political organizations, and families. A people who believe they cannot win often focus on survival, entertainment, consumption, and individual escape. Remember, if we truly believed in ourselves, then what have we built, and what are we building, and what will we continue to build if we truly believe in ourselves? Now remember, this is not saying that 100% of Black people don't believe in ourselves, but this is saying that the majority of us don't believe in ourselves, because where is the physical proof? Where are the tangible outcomes? Where are the institutions? Where is the power? Where's the resources? Where's the organizations? Where's the unity? Where's the families? Because we're not saying we're hopeless. Once again, we're not saying we're hopeless as a whole or en masse. En masse, we're not saying we're hopeless to wallow in it. We're saying we're hopeless so we can fix the issue. So we can say en masse, Black people have hope, right? Remember, the greatest challenge facing Black America today is not racism itself, because racism is the root of our greatest problem, but the hopelessness that centuries of oppression, failed leadership, economic exclusion, and cultural conditioning has produced. The purpose of our discussion today is not an attack on Black people. The purpose is to identify the hopelessness so we can overcome the hopelessness once again. Because because a people who are hopeless cannot build. A people who are hopeless don't build. And one thing that we know about Black Americans is we don't build. You can't deny that. En masse, we don't build. Where's our unity? Where's our collective code of conduct? And where's our collective economy? People who believe in themselves, people who are hopeful, build those things for themselves and nurture those things for themselves. A question I want to ask: if Black America truly believed we could control our future, then what evidence would we see? Would we see more businesses? And I'm not talking about frivolous businesses. I'm talking about businesses that actually make a real impact. Businesses that can actually support the community and hire people, right? We will see more land ownership. We will see more Black owned or Black ran schools. We will see more Black owned banks. We will see more Black manufacturing. Yeah, we will actually see Black political organizations, like real impactful Black political organizations. We will see the Black family back together. Back when, like Black Americans had the highest rate of marriage in America, because we had a lot more hope back then. The hope has been, the little hope we had back then has been drained out. Family, our lack of willingness to build family, our view of family, our idea of family shows the level of hopelessness that the majority of us have. And then our community institutions, where are they? Where are the community institutions? What are the institutions that we can funnel our power and our resources and our economics through? Where are they? What we do see is mass escapism. Everybody gotta get away from the bull somehow or another, right? Get away from real life. What we do see is celebrity worship. What we do see is consumerism. What we do see is massive dependency on the same group of people that are the same group of people that's oppressing us. And what we do see is not only us complaining about organizing, but refusing to organize. Tell me that's not hopelessness. Tell me the state of Black America right now is not hopelessness, and have a straight face. You may not be hopeless. I'm not hopeless. But you and I don't represent the whole of Black America. Once again, where are the results? People who have hope in themselves have actual real world results. Now let me let Dr. Claude Anderson jump in here and give a little piece on this.
Have trust. They don't trust each other. You can't trust each other if you don't have a community. A community comes first. Once you get a community and you get to know people, then you move up to the next level, you trust them. Once you learn how to trust people, then you move up to the third level, you begin to cooperate with them. And once you learn how to cooperate with them, then you get to the fourth level, you start holding them accountable for what they're doing wrong. The same thing in business. In business, you're building a business operation, and competitiveness and powernomics is a 5-story building. The first thing you all should be doing, as I said, get you some institutions like the Chamber and started teaching, acquiring wealth and power through operating businesses. If you build an economy, that's a 5-story building. The first floor must always be economics. Always build an economy before you do everything else. The first floor is the economy. The second floor is politics. The third floor is the court and police departments, the enforcement system. The fourth floor is the media. The fifth floor is schools. Now again, you've been bamboozled on that because they keep telling you that if you go to send Black folks to school, jump to the fifth floor and try to come back down. Education can't do nothing. Education is just a tool. You start with your economy. Once you build an economy, a viable, competitive economy, by making your money circulate 8 to 12 times, you take that money and you move to the second floor. The second floor is your politicians. Don't worry about vote. You don't have to vote. People that got money, whether it's organized crime or wealthy people, they don't have to vote. You take your money on the first floor and you buy every politician on the second floor. And if you can't buy them, you rent or lease them. And once you rent or lease those politicians or buy them on the second floor, you hold them accountable to go to the third floor. And you stop the police from shooting and killing Black folk all the time. And come up with new codes of conduct. Then once you get to the third floor and get the police and court system straight, because you can now effectuate it, then you go to the fourth floor. The fourth floor means media. You cannot own television stations, radio stations, and daily newspapers if you don't have an economy. I hear Black folk crying all the time. I have 2 radio stations. I used to have 4. You cannot have a media operation unless you have an economy. Who's going to buy your time, your ads? You got to have an economy to buy the time. And so you got to, right now we have 12,000 radio stations in the United States. We got about 12,000 cable systems, 5,000 daily newspapers, 5,000 TV stations. Black folk own 35 thousandths of 1%. You can't even communicate. You can't communicate, you can't organize. You can't get communication because you don't have an economy. And once you get enough money, you put your medium up at the fourth floor. Then lastly, you tell the fifth floor, which is a school system, say, here's what we want. We don't want any more Black basketball players and football players. Every Black right now, a successful Black, has got some kind of an illicit relationship with a ball. He's either running with a tennis ball, basketball, golf ball, football, sending on jokes, telling jokes, pretending he's having a ball. Just get away from that. And say from now on, you try to raise kids that can produce something. The producers will be the people survive. Right now, Black folk are 0 producers and 100% consumers. You're going to get totally wiped out in this country and wiped off the face of the earth under globalization if you don't learn how to produce vertically. You produce something at the bottom level, then you go up and you have other Blacks come in over you. If like I'm producing fish, 1 million pounds of fish a year, I want Blacks to come in and warehouse, wholesale, distributor, then retail. I want to see some Black lobster restaurants in the country. And you build, and about 2 more minutes I got. Now, and you build these vertical orders based on your competitive advantages. Build your businesses where you have a competitive advantage. What are your competitive advantages, Black folk? Always build your business where you dominate in population or you dominate in spending patterns. I built the seafood factories. Why? Because blacks eat 3 to 4 times more seafood than whites, and you spend $9 for every $1 whites spend. You should be controlling the seafood industry. Do the same thing with leather. You do the same thing with your hair. Right now, blacks are the only people got a certain quality of hair, and yet the Koreans are controlling black hair care in America. And you watch you build these businesses like the difference between Detroit and Chinatown. You got it in Chinatown in New York. In Chinatown, New York, they got about a little less than 300,000 Chinese there. And in Detroit, you had almost a million blacks. I looked at the two and compared them. In Chinatown, they had 35 banks, 35 Asian banks. In Detroit, they got 2 black banks, and that's owned by the same one. How is it that almost a million people don't have 2 banks and 300,000 will have 35 banks? I looked at the number of restaurants. The Asians had almost 400-something restaurants in New York. Black folk in Detroit had 3. I looked at and I said, how do these Asians producing so well and have so much? And Asians have the highest median family income in America. Here's what they do in conclusion. They build around their advantage. What is it that Asians eat the most of? They eat noodles. I went and found something like about 100 and some noodle factories in New York where they produce their own noodles. Now, once they produce the noodles, what do you put on the noodles? They put a sauce on the noodles. I found about another 60 or 70 companies that produce the sauce to go on the noodles. And I said, what else they producing? Then I found that they had, I don't know how many, 35 or 40 companies that make the little fortune cookies. They take care of their own people. That's why you'll never see Asians, Arabs, Hispanic, or American Indians out marching for integration or for social civil rights. They don't do it. They build businesses. I love you all. Take care.
So, Dr. Claude Anderson giving you a perspective. Now, remember, he's talking from a standpoint of what the group is not doing and what he as an individual with hope does. Because once again, echoing the same sentiments, as a whole, we're not producing, we're not building, we're not creating, we're not owning, we're not controlling, we're only participating and depending. That doesn't look like hope to me. Now, what does hopelessness look like? Hopelessness does not always look like sadness. I'm gonna say that again. Hopelessness does not always look like sadness. Sometimes hopelessness looks like living only for today. You know, people stop planning for the future because they don't believe that the future belongs to them. I was watching a podcast earlier and a group of black men having a conversation and expressing that sentiment that, you know, when they're young, they don't plan for the future. A lot of black men don't plan for the future because they don't think they're going to be alive to see it. So, but as a people though, we don't plan for the future because I don't think we believe that we can win. We're as a whole, as a mass of people, where are our long-term investments? As a mass of people, where are our succession planning? As a mass of people, where is our land acquisition? Where is our institution building? As a mass of people. Another symptom of hopelessness is celebrity worship. People who believe in themselves create leaders. They don't follow the leaders given to them by their oppressors. They create their own leaders. They produce their own leaders. They cultivate them. Instead of creating leaders, hopeless people become spectators. They watch wealthy entertainers. They follow influencers, and they debate celebrity gossip. But they rarely build organizations for themselves. I got a question for people who don't believe that we are hopeless en masse. Well, why en masse we know more about celebrities than community building? Why en masse do Black Americans know more about celebrities than community building? Right? Another symptom is the escapism. Anything to take us away from the reality of white supremacy and how it has beat us down and how we are on the bottom. But if we can escape, then we don't have to feel it. We need to feel it so we can start doing something about it. But you know, people escape. They escape by leaving the neighborhoods. They leave the city. They leave black people. Or the drugs, the alcohol, the lifestyle, the sex, the illusions, the entertainment, the traveling, all the things to escape. We never ask how to improve what we have. We never think about improving what we have. We don't care to improve what we have. We just want to be a part of everybody else's. Does that sound like self-esteem and hope to you? In mass, now, you may have self-esteem and you may have hope, but in mass, we don't have it. And that's why we have to be active in our community with the young people, so we can make sure we're instilling self-esteem and hope within the young people so they can actually have a future. Another symptom is believing that failure is guaranteed. Too many of us believe nothing will ever change. Too many of us believe and carry the behaviors that prevent black people from working together. They have the mindset and the behaviors that prevent black people from working together. So many black people have no desire to work with black people. You have black people who've never worked with black people, but because of the narratives, they have no desire. People who believe that all black businesses are bad and all black businesses fail. No, we know black businesses have bad reputations, but that's because of the hopelessness. That's a symptom of the hopelessness, the vacant esteem. There are people who believe that the system of white supremacy is too powerful for us to replace it. No. The system of white supremacy is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It planted the seed, and we cultivated and grew the seed of hopelessness. They planted the seed of hopelessness, and we grew it. Now, remember, we're talking about learned hopelessness, not inherent hopelessness. Learned hopelessness, meaning this was by design. So, therefore, there can be something, there can be a redesign, and the redesign in hope, which means we don't stay there. We recognize it, though. You recognize the issue and you fix it. If I have a problem with my car, if I have a flat tire, and I know this flat tire will prevent me from getting to my destination, and I continue to ignore my flat tire, that will degrade the total quality of the car. Continuing to ignore the hopelessness is continuing to degrade the overall quality of Black America. Now, let's let our scholars help us a bit, right? So Dr. Joy DeGruy and the post-traumatic slave syndrome, she got a whole book about it, man. It's a whole book about it, right? Let me get my words out. Dr. DeGruy's theory of post-traumatic slave syndrome argues that generations of slavery, violence, and oppression created adaptive behaviors that continue long after slavery ended. Trauma repeated over generations can create behaviors that appear normal but are actually survival responses. Those examples include low self-esteem, internalized inferiority, violence within the group, distrust, and what that word, hopelessness. Dr. DeGruy does not argue Black people are broken. She argues people adapt to their environment, right? So the question becomes, are we still using survival strategies when we need development strategies? It's time to stop surviving and time to start building. But as long as we stay in survival mode, the hopelessness will continue. When we switch over to building as a whole, as a majority, we will see less and less hopelessness. But that's the trick, being able to flip the switch, being able to reprogram ourselves, because nobody ever said you stay or wallow in the hopelessness. You fight it to replace it. Now, Dr. Amos Wilson talked about the psychological enslavement. Dr. Wilson argued that Power begins in the mind. So where is the black power? Those who argue against our hopelessness, where is the black power? One of Dr. Wilson's major themes is, if another group controls your thinking, they control your future. Same thing Dr. Carter G. Woodson talked about in The Miseducation of the Negro. Dr. Wilson believes oppression creates psychological dependency. That right there is hopelessness. Confusion about self-interest. Misplaced priorities. He often challenged Black people to ask, what institutions do we own that serve our collective interest? I'll repeat the question. What institutions do we own that serve our collective interest? Because that's what people have when they have hope. We also believe many Black people have become consumers rather than producers, right? A producer mindset asks, what can I build? What can I own? And what can I pass on? A consumer mindset will ask, what can I buy? What can I watch? What can I consume? What can I be a part of? Are y'all picking up what I'm putting down? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? If you're picking up what I'm putting down, let me know in the comments. All right? Because we have to be honest with ourselves, but we also have to look at it from a lens of how do we fix it. That's why we call it out, so we can fix it. All right, so Dr. Francis Cress Wilson repeatedly argued that Black people must stop waiting for validation from others. Well, why would a group of people with hope en masse want validation from others, right? One of her reoccurring themes was, if you don't understand the system you're operating within, you cannot effectively respond to it. If you don't understand the system you're operating within, you cannot effectively respond to it. If you are too emotional to deal with the reality, you will never fix it. She encouraged Black people to become more organized, more politically aware, and more economically strategic. But that takes give a damn, and it takes hope. It takes self-esteem, it takes self-love, it takes group love. Welsing often emphasized collective survival. A hopeless population thinks individually. A hopeful population thinks collectively. Now let's ask this question honestly and truthfully and honestly. Do Black people en masse think collectively? Do Black Americans en masse think collectively? Be honest. Be honest with yourself. Do Black people en masse think collectively? I think we all know the answer to that. Frantz Fanon. Frantz Fanon, he really dove into this stuff, right? He observed colonized people losing faith in themselves. The colonized person often begins to see himself through the eyes of the colonizer. Black Skin, White Mask. Read it. Great book. We read it on this channel. We've read Wretched of the Earth and Black Skin, White Mask. I'm gonna say this part again. The colonized person often begins to see himself through the eyes of the colonizer. Do we not see ourselves through the eyes of white people? The symptoms of the colonized include inferiority and inferiority complex we've inherited. Self-hatred. Look how we take each other out with ease. Look how we bang on each other with ease. Cultural rejection. We want to be a part of everybody's culture, but then get mad when people appropriate ours. Dependence. We own nothing, so we're dependent for everything. Fanon warned that liberation is not merely political, it is psychological. You must believe freedom is possible before you can create it. And people who no longer believe they can shape history stop trying. Another question I'm gonna ask: are we truly trying to shape history as a people, or are we just being participants? Coming back around to Dr. Claude Anderson, because as we know, he focused heavily on strategies to build economic power. His argument is straightforward. Every successful group of people develops economic power. They develop political power. They develop institutional power. Dr. Anderson often points out that Black America spends enormous amounts of money annually, but controls relatively little productive infrastructure. We don't control nothing, and we don't produce nothing. We don't manufacture nothing. We just spend. Why are we spending and not building if we are hopeful? Dr. Anderson would likely argue that hopelessness appears when people stop believing ownership matters. So then again, I ask, what are we actually building? What are we actually building? What are we building? I'm not asking about what are we consuming. I'm not asking about what are we watching. I'm not asking about complaining. I'm asking about, en masse, as a whole, as a unit, what have Black Americans built for ourselves lately? I'm not talking about what was destroyed. What have we built for ourselves en masse lately? I think we all know the answer to that. Now, on a small scale, we do have, and these are, and remember, on a small scale, we do have some things that we have built on a small scale, but these are the things I'm continually preaching and saying to them blue in the face that we have to support if we want to grow and make it better and have more of these. But you know, Black people don't like to support. That's a part of our hopelessness. But on a small scale, we do have independent media platforms like mine. We do have homeschool networks like Pat and brother Q Butter, Pat and Miss Kristen. We got charter schools, you know, Jalen Rose now. A bunch of small Black businesses. We do have financial literacy organizations. We do have community gardens. We do have mutual aid groups. We do have health initiatives. We do have cultural education programs. But the problem with all of that is it's not aggregated and united. It's not aggregated, it's not united, and it's not supported the way we support white people. The way you Black people know all these celebrity business, we should know everything about these businesses. And I myself am an example of individual hope. Me, Pat, PC, and everybody who tunes into this channel, we are an example of critical mass hope, but we need more than that to go up against an empire. Right? But remember, these efforts are not large enough. They're not large enough. We're only 42 million Black people in America. 42 million Black people in America. We need every person we can get. We need all of us. We're only 13% of the population. We need everybody hands on deck. Now, in real life and real history, we know we're not going to get every single Black person hands on deck, but out of the 42 million, we need the majority of that 42 million hands on deck to really go up against the system of white supremacy, the global system of white supremacy. And then we would need all other Black and African nations of the diaspora to be on point so we can move forward, right? Because remember, but just coming back, focusing on Black Americans, we got to remember and keep asking ourselves, when we're talking about we have hope on a en masse, we don't. Because if we did, we would have national banks, we would have manufacturing companies, We'll have technology firms. We'll have shipping companies, agricultural cooperatives, real estate consortiums, and insurance companies, right? We have evidence to show that we are hopeless. And we also have evidence that there is hope on a small scale, but we need to grow the hope. And I think that's the part people keep missing what I'm saying, because they're focused on me saying we're hopeless. Yes, but we can grow the hope that we do have. You got to start somewhere. Now, to be fair, there's evidence. Once again, there's evidence of small scale hope. But how do we grow that hope? We got to support the Black owned businesses. We got to support the Black owned businesses with all our might. We have to support the Black ran schools and put our children in the schools with all our might. And we need to first of all, every Black person as an individual, you need to be a great person. You need to be a person with character. You need to be a person with integrity. You need to be a person with the mindset of, I am Black, I'm proud, I'm beautiful, and we're going to build this thing for ourselves to become a powerful people. Because that will lead us to supporting our entrepreneurs and supporting our Black businesses, to building Black schools, to educating our kids at home, to having these homeschool cooperatives, pulling our kids out of these schools. Matter of fact, family planning will come in so we won't have to put our kids in these school systems that don't support them, right? You will see an increase in civic engagement. You will see an increase in community service. We will see a cultural shift because of an increase in cultural influence, right? Let me reiterate this before I start to close this thing out. Hopelessness is not inherent to Black people. It's not a Black trait. Hopelessness is not a Black trait. Hopelessness is a predictable response to long-term powerlessness. It comes from being beat down over time. It's a learned behavior. But if it's a learned behavior, that means it could be unlearned. And we can unlearn it through our actions and our mindsets, changing our mindsets and following up with positive actions that will show and have outcomes like building organizations, owning what we build, controlling what we build, protecting what we build, producing real leaders and supporting real leaders, and having tangible outcomes with tangible victories. Every major achievement in history began with a group of people who believed tomorrow could be different than today. The question for Black America is not whether obstacles exist, because we know obstacles exist. Obstacles for us have always existed. We don't know anything else. We've only existed in this post-colonial era, right? The question is whether we still believe we can build despite the obstacles. En masse, do we believe we can still build despite the obstacles? Because no people ever been saved by hope alone. But no people have ever built any great thing without hope. So there I ask one last time, do we truly believe in ourselves en masse? Or are we just upset because we don't like to hear the truth? With that being said, close this thing on now. I am Joseph Ward. Thank you for tuning in. This is On the Shoulders of Giants. Have a great Friday. A great Juneteenth. Matter of fact, great Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth to my people. And let's use this to start to build. Start to build hope. Start to build a future. Start to build ourselves toward tangible outcomes. So I love you all. Make sure y'all have a great Juneteenth.